Chapter 1, The Confirmed Genius, Jing Freaks and His Fathomless Power. First, we must look at the man already confirmed as one of the top 5, Jing Freaks. His sheer greatness lies not just in his combat prowess, but in the unprecedented scale of his existence. Let's begin with his track record as a hunter. Jing passed the 267th hunter exam, exactly 20 years before Gon took his. Jing was only 12 years old at the time, the exact same age as Gon. Even more astonishing is the fact that Jing was the only person to pass that year. He achieved a solo victory. The very fact that a 12-year-old boy with zero knowledge of Nin managed to conquer such a grueling exam entirely on his own proves that his physical capabilities and survival instincts were already beyond human comprehension. Currently, Jing holds the title of a double-star hunter. However, according to his disciple, Kite, Jing simply finds the paperwork too bothersome to fill out. His actual achievements are easily on par with those of a triple-star hunter. A triple-star hunter is a supreme title held by fewer than 10 people in the entire world, granted only to those who have accomplished multiple historic discoveries and global feats. Jing has absolutely no interest in prestige or titles, he merely enjoys his little detours in life. That carefree attitude masks the true, terrifying size of his caliber. Next, let's look at the wealth and authority that showcase his abnormal scale. In the world of hunters, information and financial power are incredibly potent weapons for survival. During the Yorknu City arc, when Gon and Killua accessed the Hunter-exclusive web network, they found that Jing was registered as a top-secret member, making it impossible to extract any information about him. According to the story, acquiring this level of security and authority requires the political power of a head of state and a massive fortune. Even more shocking was his intervention in Beyond Netero's expedition team during the Dark Continent arc. To snatch the number 2 position away from Paristan, Jing casually announced to the mercenaries that he would pay double whatever Beyond was offering, upfront, and entirely out of his own pocket. That amount came to a staggering 14.5 billion Jinni. In a world where even floor masters at the Heavens Arena earn in the hundreds of millions, the ability to instantly produce over 10 billion Jinni in cash means Jing's financial power completely shatters the boundaries of an ordinary individual. And now, we arrive at the core of Jing's strength as a Nin user. Truth be told, Jing's original Hatsu, his unique Nin ability, has yet to be revealed. However, he has demonstrated an absurd innate skill. If he takes a hit from a striking type Nin ability, he can generally copy it. During the chairman election arc, Leorio hit Jing with his emission type Warp Punch. Jing took the hit once, perfectly copied it, and effortlessly used it in a later skirmish, but he didn't just mimic it. By deducing that Leorio was studying to become a doctor, Jing figured out the origin of the ability, that it was an offensive application of a technique originally meant to destroy tumors without making an incision, much like an ultrasound. When Paristan saw this and asked, "Is your ability to trace other people's powers?" Jing simply laughed and replied, "It's just a talent." In other words, Jing doesn't have a special copying ability. He simply possesses an abnormal, monstrous sense for Nin that allows him to visually and intuitively grasp the flow of aura and perfectly replicate it with his own. In a game with Beyond's mercenaries, he demonstrated godlike control, shaping his aura into spheres and complex forms at his fingertips. His foundational skills alone place him at the absolute pinnacle. Lastly, we cannot forget his intellect and strategic mind. Paristan Hill is a triple-star hunter and the most cunning trickster among the Zodiacs. During the chairman election, Paristan pulled the strings from the shadows, manipulating all the other Zodiacs. Yet, Jing was the only one who perfectly read Paristan's intentions and thought processes several steps ahead. Furthermore, Jing created the game Greed Island, fully anticipating from the very beginning that Gon would one day play and clear it. Constructing a massive Nin system that intertwines with the real world, and maintaining it for years in cooperation with multiple game masters, is an impossible feat without an overwhelming knowledge of Nin mechanics. Reading an opponent's mind moves ahead and understanding Nin on a systemic level, this bottomless intellect and adaptability is the true reason Jing Freaks is counted among the top 5 in the world. Chapter 2, The Pinnacle of Humanity and Absolute Champion, Isaac Netero. Next, we focus on the very man who set the standard for the top 5, the former chairman of the Hunter Association, Isaac Netero. Judging from the narrative context, it is safe to assume that Netero inherently included himself in this ranking. Half a century ago, he was undeniably the strongest Nin user on the planet, and during the Chimera Ant arc, he demonstrated the terrifying resolve and pride of humanity. To discuss Netero, we must first look at the origin of his strength, his past training. Netero did not transform into a true monster during his youth. It happened when he was 46 years old, a time when he felt he had hit the absolute limit of his physical body and martial arts. For an ordinary martial artist, this is the age to accept decline and focus on raising the next generation. But Netero was different. To show gratitude to the martial arts that raised him, he secluded himself in the mountains and imposed a mad, grueling routine upon himself, 10,000 punches of gratitude, every single day. When he first began this training, completing the 10,000 movements took him over 18 hours, but as he repeated this ritual for years, his body and spirit completely transcended human limitations. By the time he passed the age of 50 and truly hatched, he could complete the 10,000 punches in less than an hour. When he finally descended from the mountain and challenged local dojos, his fists had reached a dimension where they left sound behind. Through pure, fanatical repetition and prayer, not talent or bloodline, he shattered the limits of humanity. Let's delve deeper into his signature Nin ability, the 100-type Guanyin Bodhisattva. Manifesting a colossal, golden Guanyin statue that unleashes countless palm strikes perfectly synchronized with Netero's movements, the true threat of this ability is not just its destructive power. It is its absolute speed that denies the opponent any chance to counterattack. To activate the ability, Netero must bring his hands together in a motion of prayer before every single strike. In real combat, forcing yourself into a specific, mandatory motion before attacking is a fatal flaw, a wasted movement. Yet, the speed from Netero's prayer to his actual strike was so unfathomably fast that it forced Meruem, the strongest biological creature in the series, to admit it was an inevitable speed. By intentionally imposing the restriction of prayer, Netero paradoxically generated speed that transcended physical limits. It is a masterpiece of Nen, the crystallization of a life devoted to martial arts. During his deathmatch with the Chimera Ant King, Netero was vastly outmatched in terms of raw biological specs. Meruem possessed an absurd amount of aura and a durability so unreasonable that taking thousands upon thousands of hits from the Guanyin Bodhisattva resulted in no fatal injuries. Yet, through this battle, Meruem developed a profound respect and admiration for Netero. Enduring the barrage, the king praised him, stating, "He has mastered it. A human individual's absolute limit, far surpassing my own capabilities." Furthermore, when Netero lost an arm and a leg, he didn't grimace in pain, instead, he smiled, intoxicated by the joy of battle. That sheer mental fortitude sent a shiver down the king's spine. However, the truly terrifying aspect of Netero was the ruthless hunter lurking beneath the facade of a pure martial artist. When the time for a conclusion arrived, Netero stopped his own heart to detonate the miniature rose bomb implanted within him. His final words, "Don't underestimate the bottomless malice of human evolution," delivered with a horrifying, demon-like smile, revealed his true nature. The moment he realized he could not win through pure martial arts, he coldly and unhesitatingly resorted to a weapon of mass destruction crafted by humanity, using his own life as the trigger. Netero was not just a martial arts master, his willingness to use any means necessary to achieve his goal is what made him the ultimate hunter. Chapter 3, The Dark Continent Survivor and Incarnation of Ambition. Beyond Netero, our third candidate is the incarnation of ambition who dragged the Kakan Empire into his scheme and declared humanity's expedition to the Dark Continent, beyond Netero. Despite being Isaac Netero's son, he remained out of the public eye for years. However, unraveling the events of the story proves without a doubt that he is a monster worthy of the top 5. First, we must highlight Beyond's anomalous, magnetic charisma. When he broadcast his speech to the world, declaring his challenge to the Dark Continent, the Zodiacs, the highest-ranking executives of the Hunter Association, were left speechless. His posture, his rhetoric, and the absolute confidence radiating through the screen made them realize they were looking at the exact same aura of a champion they had once revered in Isaac Netero. Beyond heavily inherited the blood of the man who kept the wild beast of the Hunter Association in check. His ability to pull brilliant, unpredictable hunters like Pariston and Jing into his orbit, and manipulate the royalty and military of the Kakan Empire for his own ambitions, proves that even before discussing his Nen, his power to lead and ignite mass fanaticism is truly terrifying. His most undeniable achievement, however, is surviving the Dark Continent. Roughly 50 years ago, Beyond joined an expedition team as a specialist and set foot on that forbidden land. But he ignored the official route set by his father, plunging into uncharted territory. This catastrophic mistake resulted in massive casualties and brought a new calamity, the immortal zombie disease, back to the human world. Out of that entire expedition, only 6 people returned alive, including those infected with zombie. But here is where Beyond's abnormality shines: he returned completely uninfected, fully intact, and maintaining his massive, muscular physique. Surviving in a land where humanity has been repeatedly wiped out, even after making a fatal navigational error, is absolute proof that he possesses the overwhelming survival skills and Nen capability necessary to overcome giant unknown creatures and hostile environments on his own. Following this disaster, Isaac Netero imposed a strict rule: until I die, you are forbidden from traveling to the Dark Continent. Netero didn't issue this ban because he was afraid his son would die. He issued it because he knew Beyond would survive again and inevitably bring back yet another world-ending calamity to the human world. The fact that Chairman Netero, a man who had surpassed human limits, considered Beyond that much of a threat is the greatest evidence that Beyond belongs in the top 5. Furthermore, Netero's posthumous directive to the Zodiacs was to explore the Dark Continent ahead of my son and conquer one of the calamities. He knew that even if all the Zodiacs banded together, there was a real chance Beyond would still beat them to it. Currently sitting calmly in a prison cell, biding his time, Beyond's Hatsu remains a mystery. But once he lands on the Dark Continent and unleashes his true power, the entire power balance of the series will undoubtedly be rewritten. Chapter 4, The Legendary Assassin. Maha Zoldyck. Our 4th candidate is the oldest living member of the deadliest assassin family in the series, Maha Zoldyck. Though his appearances are incredibly brief, the lore surrounding him exudes a bottomless, terrifying aura. The most definitive and despair-inducing proof of Maha's power comes from a single statement made by his grandson, Zeno Zoldyck. During the Chimera Ant arc, Zeno described Netero's strength by saying, "Netero is the only man alive who survived a fight with my grandpa." The Zoldyck family's trade is assassination. If a conflict escalates into a genuine fight to the death, there is no holding back. This means that during Maha's prime, the only human being on the entire planet capable of surviving his killing intent and attacks was Isaac Netero. Conversely, this proves that Maha's strength was completely on par with, or perhaps only a hair away from, Netero in his prime. Next, we must look at Maha's Nen category. According to official data books, Maha is the only enhancer in the Zoldyck family. In a profession that demands stealth and covert operations like assassination, being an enhancer, a category focused purely on maximizing physical strength and aura, might seem counterintuitive. However, this suggests that Maha's assassination style was the most terrifying kind imaginable, one that required no cheap tricks or elaborate traps. He simply crushed his targets head-on with overwhelming violence and speed. The fact that he could go toe-to-toe with the absolute speed and destructive force of Netero's 100-type Guanyin Bodhisattva makes perfect sense if he had reached the absolute zenith of enhancement. Despite his age, we have seen Maha successfully execute a mission. During the York New City arc, hired by Krilo, Maha worked alongside Illumi and Kalito to assassinate the 10 Dons, the highest authorities of the Mafia community. A tiny, wrinkled old man, he silently and instantaneously wiped out a group of global powerhouses, proving that his assassination skills haven't dulled in the slightest. Since Nen mastery is heavily reliant on experience and technique, which can often compensate for a decline in raw aura, it is only natural to assume that even in his old age, Maha maintains world-class combat capabilities. Additionally, the story introduces a man named Zig Zoldyck who once journeyed to the Dark Continent with Netero. While it is highly likely based on the family tree that Zig is Maha's son and Zeno's father, what is certain is that during Netero's prime, the Zoldyck family produced talents capable of challenging the Dark Continent and absolute monsters capable of fighting Netero to a standstill. It is no stretch to imagine this legendary assassin taking one of the top 5 spots. Chapter 5, Uncharted Territories. Other absolute powerhouses. Now, let's explore other absolute powerhouses in the story who harbor the potential to claim a spot among Netero's top 5. The first standout candidate is the leader of the Phantom Troop, Krlo Lucifer. His terrifying nature is encapsulated in his specialist Nin ability, Skill Hunter Bandit's secret. By sealing other people's Nin abilities within his book, he can freely draw upon them as his own. The more cards he adds to his deck, the more infinitely his tactical options expand. Krlo's status as a world-class fighter was cemented during his 2-on-1 deathmatch against the legendary assassins, Zeno and Silva, in York New City. In an extreme battle where one wrong move meant instant death, Krlo intentionally held back his killing intent because his actual goal was to steal their abilities, carefully probing their techniques instead. After the fight, when Krlo asked, "If we fought one-on-one, who would win?" Zeno replied, "9 times out of 10, it would be me. But if you were actually trying to kill me, that would be a different story." For a battle-hardened veteran like Zeno to admit this speaks volumes. Factoring in Krlo's immense IQ, his ability to analyze enemy powers and craft perfect, inescapable combos, he more than qualifies as an elite Nin user in Netero's eyes. Next is a living legend who exists on a completely different plane of reality, Don Freaks. He is the author of Journey to the New World, the comprehensive journal detailing the environments and ecosystems of the Dark Continent, a place where humanity has been repeatedly decimated. The book supposedly consists of an East and West volume, but only the East volume has ever been found in the human world. The reason, as Jean deduced, is that Don is currently still in the Dark Continent, actively writing the West volume. If true, this means Don traveled alone to the Dark Continent over 300 years ago and is actively surviving in a land so punishing that even Netero gave up on conquering it. Surviving for 3 centuries by foraging the ultimate longevity food, nitro rice, and fending off unfathomable calamities and giant beasts, Don would undeniably possess a life force and Nin capability dwarfing any modern hunter. He is the very definition of humanity's strongest. We also cannot overlook veterans like Lynn Horstuver, the oldest active pro-hunter who survived a journey to the Dark Continent alongside a young Netero and Zig Zoldyck, returning fully intact, a feat matching Beyond's. Then there is Periston Hill, a triple-star hunter and former Zodiac. While we haven't seen his direct combat abilities, Jing himself acknowledged Periston as the only guy I actually want to mess with. Netero's exact criteria for the top 5 are never explicitly stated, however, whether it is Krlo's infinite adaptability, Don's extreme survival skills, or Periston's psychological dominance, it's clear that Netero looked beyond raw aura. He recognized those who pushed their own unique conditions and Nin applications to a realm no one else could reach. Chapter 6, The Unpredictable Magician, That Man, Hisoka Moro. Finally, when discussing the absolute pinnacle of Nin combat, there is one man we cannot avoid. The magician who constantly thirsts for death matches against the strong, turning battlefields into his personal playground, Hisoka Moro. The foundation of Hisoka's strength lies in the absurd versatility of his ability, Bungee Gum. It is a remarkably simple transmutation ability that gives his aura the properties of both rubber and gum. Yet, this simplicity is precisely what makes it so lethal. It acts as a defensive shield to absorb blunt force, an adhesive to bind opponents and their weapons, a slingshot for high-speed mobility, and a counter to repel projectiles. He can execute high-level offense, defense, and mobility simultaneously with this single ability. In actual combat, an ability this seamless and devoid of blind spots is far more threatening than any highly complex, restrictive power. Hisoka's true mastery, however, is his terrifying battle IQ and psychological warfare. Against Castro at the Heavens Arena, he purposefully allowed his arms to be severed, a psychotic bluff designed to create a literal magic trick that completely shattered his opponent's focus. Against the butler Goto, he instantaneously utilized the surrounding terrain and applied texture surprise to completely blindside and manipulate his opponent. His habit of casually grading Zodiacs with scores like 95 points is not mere arrogance. In a pure, chaotic deathmatch where the environment constantly shifts, Hisoka's adaptability is lethal. He is like a deadly venom, capable of laying fatal traps and taking down opponents who might possess higher raw stats. But what truly elevated Hisoka to the realm of a true monster was his deathmatch against Krlo at the Heavens Arena, and his subsequent awakening via postmortem Nin. Facing a Crollo who had perfectly orchestrated the location, the audience, and his stolen abilities, Hisako was ultimately defeated and killed. However, right before his death, he programmed his nin to massage his heart and lungs, pulling off a miraculous self-resurrection. The revived Hisako used bungee gum and texture surprise to reconstruct his missing limbs and facial features, completely removing his psychological limiters. Discarding his previous rule of letting his toys prepare for a fight, he initiated a psychotic hunting spree, vowing to slaughter the Phantom Troop on sight. He proved this immediately by assassinating Shanark and Cordopi without giving them a single moment to counterattack. In terms of sheer aura scale, he might not match Netero or the Royal Guards, but in the extreme context of a one-on-one fight to the death, the current Hisaka, having crossed the boundary of death with his nin sharpened to an absolute edge, is a fatal wildcard to anyone in the series. Through his own twisted methodology, he is undeniably carving his way to the apex of nin users.